Hey gang, so I was going to do this video because I still think it would be useful for you all, called the best and the worst plugins I've ever owned. But I was making a list and it got so hairy making the worst ones that I was like, oh dear, I'm going to start by talking about the ones I like instead. So I'm going to do that video hopefully before I leave for London. But what I want to talk to you about today is related to that, and that is that I may never buy another plugin again. Why? Well, I'm doing this session back here, and I needed to get it done before it's completely shut down, because as of tomorrow, I did a video the other day showing you that all the instruments are gone, but as of tomorrow, the computer and the monitors, I'm left with just a laptop. My desktop, which is a very powerful desktop and I use for Pro Tools and all my production stuff, that's gone as of tomorrow. They're coming, boom, taking it, and that's going air, and that should arrive the day after we get to London, I hope, crossing fingers. So I'll just be left with a laptop. So I wanted to finish, anything that could possibly need to get done, right? Right. So I'm working on this session. It's a mix, and I don't like to mix. I like to master more than I like to mix. I like to produce and I like to master. Mixing is just still a mystery to me. I know when it's good, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to consider, but I had to do this one. So anyway, I was doing the mix, and right about, I would say 90% done, Pro Tools crashes. Like it never did this before. It just stopped in the middle of playback, sat there for a minute, and then rebooted itself. It's rebooted itself before, but never just froze, stopped, and then did it. So, okay, I reopened the session. Now I know, okay, we'll save every couple of seconds because I have it set to save every minute. And because you can do that in the preferences, by the way. And so I'm going. I get a little further along and it does it again, and it does it again. Then it won't open. After 3 or 4 times of this, crashing, rebooting, right, it won't open. I can't get Pro Tools to open. Now, when this occurs, Ed, the tech help guy, when this occurs, there's only a few things you can do. Usually it's because of drivers or plugins. For me, because I keep my drivers updated, I check every week, I knew it wasn't the drivers, but I checked anyway. It was a plugin. So what were the last few plugin activities that I had? And that was, I bought 2 new plugins and I updated 3 others. So that's 5 options that could be the problem, right? Because an update can be a problem. Sometimes it is, and then they update it right away because they figure it out. But not all companies test as rigorously as they should. That doesn't mean they're bad people, but they just don't test. Plus, a lot of developers develop for VST, and Pro Tools uses AAX format. They hate AAX because it's an extra step, et cetera, et cetera. So, all right, 5 options. What do? Well, you can uninstall those 5 options, right? The last 5. That's the easiest way to do it. And I went one at a time. And they sort of seemed to work, but then when I rebooted and got it going again, it stopped and then wouldn't reboot at all. So then I said, okay, well, let's do a clean install of Pro Tools. Let's uninstall everything and reinstall it, because I can't not be able to open up my DAW. So do a clean uninstall, reinstall, that doesn't help. And that tells you something. That tells you that something is keeping you from opening. And if it's not those 5 plugins, now here's the point. It could be any one of those 5 plugins in conjunction with something else. So I know it's not Pro Tools errors because I did a clean uninstall, reinstall. I know it's not specifically those 5 plugins, but we'll get back to that later because it was one of them, but not the main issue. So then when I go to get Pro Tools, I reboot it, I reboot the computer, I reinstall everything. When I notice it going, it gets to a certain point and it tells you what it's loading at the time when it crashes. And I'm like, you know what? I bet you that that's the plugin that's causing the issue because it's loading it from the directory when it crashes, and it happened several times. Okay. And it wasn't any one of those 5 plugins. But like I said, we're going to get back there in a second. I'm telling you this to save you from this heartache, although you may have to go through these steps anyhow. So I call Bob Olson. I said, Bob, what do I do? He's like, well, take all your plugins out of the used folder and put them in the unused folder, okay? And then try to open Pro Tools. I open Pro Tools, no problem, right? Obviously, it's a plugin. It's definitely a plugin. Well, but what plugin? Right. So I'm like, so what do I do next? He's like, take each one 10 at a time and put them back in the used folder, open Pro Tools, and if it works, then take 10 more and 10 more and 10 more until it doesn't work. Okay, but I have over 900 plugins now, maybe closer to 1,000. So this took hours. But when I got to the plugin that when it closed down, when it shut down, when it was loading and I saw the name of this plugin and it crashed and wouldn't let me open, when I got to that plugin, then it didn't work anymore. So I kept 10 at a time for like an hour and a half. And then when I got to this plugin, which was in the eyes, boom, crashed again, wouldn't allow me to open. Removed it, open. Skipped over the plugin suite that company has and started after them, loaded 10 at a time, which took another couple hours. All fine. Great. Now it's working. I know it's this set of plugins, right, by this company. I report it because that's the other part of the responsibility of being a professional recording person is you got to report it. You got to make a bug report. So I make a bug report. By the way, this company has the worst, for a huge company, has impossible way to report a bug. You have to go to submenus. Usually you just send an email to the developer. No, this was quite an endeavor, but it was worth it because one of you could have this problem. So I wanted to solve it. And it turns out that other people were having this issue because they escalated it immediately and got more information from me today. So hopefully they're addressing it. But take those plugins out. Now Pro Tools is working with all the other plugins I have. So I started working. I want to finish this session, right? I want to finish this mix. And at one point I was taking a break because you just want to rest your ears. And I leave the room and I come back and it's gone. I'm like, what? It crashed? It shut itself down? I'm like, okay. So I boot it back up. I work. I do a little more work and I take another break, right? Come back and it's gone. So there's still one issue. And my guess was it was the most recent plugin that I had bought. Why is that? Well, when I was talking to Bob Olson, he said they have not, Avid DigiDesign Pro Tools hasn't tested that plugin yet because he's a beta tester, so he knows. And I'm like, oh, I guarantee you this is it. I write to the company. I send them all the info. You send them your system info. You got to give them all the goods, by the way. So they need to know all the details about your system. If you have a crash report, if you have all these other things for their plugin, there's sometimes individual plugins have crash reports. Send them everything you've got and be really concise and detailed. Sure enough, he writes back to me this morning, 2 days later, but it was the weekend. And he says, yep, other people are having that problem. We've addressed it. There's a new update. Click here. And boom, it's working. Now, I still haven't installed that plugin suite starting with I yet, because they haven't given me any updates since this morning. So that was a few hours ago. I'm going to wait for them to tell me what they discern before I do anything. But right now it's working. I'm going to be able to get this mix done and they can take my computer away. But that is why I am not buying any more plugins, because this is not the first time Pro Tools has crashed because of plugins, because of something new that I don't want to say wasn't rigorously tested, but is not a super mainstream plugin, as something new and hot and different and cool, very cool. And this particular plugin works superbly, but I cannot be the guinea pig for all of their endeavors. So I am not going to buy any more plugins. As I've told you before, you can work with all the stock stuff or get TDR, the Tokyo Dawn Lab stuff that's super cheap or free, or Analog Obsession plugins, which are all free. There's tons of great stuff out there that are very stable that don't have these issues. So don't spend your money, because you could end up having issues. And like I said, this has happened to me dozens of times over the last 20 odd years that I've been in Nashville doing heavy production. You can't have it. I was down for a day and a half. I can't be down for a day and a half or 2 days. It's just ridiculous because of a plugin and some bad code. Be forewarned. Don't do what I did. Don't buy the latest, fanciest thing. Only buy what you absolutely positively need. Not because it's cool, but only what you know you're going to be able to use and does something to help your work or your workflow, and that's been well tested. Don't be the guinea pig, because I am not buying any more plugins. I'm not having this happen again. Hours of time blown away while I'm should be. You can probably see the container. I don't know. There's a lot of light changing because the container is white and the sun is going in and out today. But the container for the C delivery is right behind the monitor out there. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, I should be loading stuff, not fixing somebody else's issues with their plugin.